The Miami skyline glittered under a velvet night sky, the rooftop gala at the top of the sleek oceanfront tower buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses. Jake Miller, a 32-year-old software engineer, stood at the edge of the crowd, a half-empty martini in hand. He'd come to support his wife, Lauren, a rising star at Pinnacle Wealth Management, who was angling for a promotion to associate director. They'd spent the morning rehearsing her pitch, Jake offering pointers while she practiced in front of their bathroom mirror. Now, watching her across the rooftop, he felt a pang of pride, until it twisted into something else. Lauren stood near the bar, her laughter ringing out as she leaned toward her boss, Ethan Caldwell, a senior partner whose charm was as sharp as his tailored suit. Her hand brushed his arm, lingering just a second too long. Jake's grip tightened on his glass. He'd seen her network before, her charisma lighting up rooms, but this felt different. Her wedding ring caught the string lights, a glint that seemed to mock him each time her fingers grazed Ethan's sleeve. "Another drink, sir?" A waiter materialized beside him, tray balanced with fresh martinis. "God, yes," Jake muttered, swapping his empty glass for a full one. "Keep him coming." He'd been parked at a high-top table for nearly an hour, alone, watching Lauren transform into someone he barely recognized. Her body language shifted, shoulders relaxed, head tilted, a smile he hadn't seen in months. The laugh she gave Ethan, bright and unguarded, was one Jake used to coax out during late-night talks on their balcony. Now, it felt like a stranger's. "Jake, you should meet Tara from compliance." Lauren had called out earlier, her voice bright, but her eyes never meeting his. Before he could cross the room, her attention snapped back to Ethan, leaving Jake stranded mid-step. It was the only acknowledgement he'd gotten since they arrived, a single, tossed-off invitation, like a crumb to a starving man. Ethan Caldwell, 38, was everything Jake wasn't. Old money, effortless confidence, the kind of guy who owned every room he entered. He stood tall, one hand in his pocket, the other cradling a scotch that probably cost more than Jake's rent in college. His presence was magnetic, suffocating even from a distance. Jake watched as Ethan leaned in, whispering something that made Lauren laugh again, her hand resting on his forearm. "They make quite the pair, don't they?" A woman's voice broke Jake's focus. She was in her late 20s, blonde, with sharp eyes and a champagne flute in hand. "I'm Sarah Fire. You're Jake, right? Lauren's husband." He nodded, stomach tightening. "Yeah, Jake Miller." Sarah's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I heard you might not make it tonight. Lauren mentioned you were swamped at work." The words hit like a punch. Jake had rearranged his entire day to be here, skipping a deadline to stand by Lauren's side. They'd gotten ready together, him zipping up her dress, her teasing him about his tie. "Well," he said, forcing a grin in surprise. Sarah sipped her champagne, her gaze flicking to Lauren and Ethan. "They've been inseparable at the office lately. Ethan's got a knack for spotting talent. Lauren's his star protege." Jake's jaw clenched. "Is that so?" "Oh," Sarah continued, oblivious to his tone. "He's always mentoring the ambitious ones. Though between you and me, he's got a reputation. Likes to blur the lines between professional and personal." The air felt heavier, the rooftop noise fading into a dull hum. Jake's eyes locked on Lauren, now standing so close to Ethan their shoulders brushed. His hand rested on her lower back, a gesture that screamed intimacy. Jake drained his martini, the burn doing little to dull the cold knot in his chest. "Never seen her this animated," another voice chimed in. A man in his 40s, with a slick smile and an expensive watch, extended a hand. "Richard Klein, investment banking. You're the husband, right?" "Jake." Jake shook his hand, feeling like he was being sized up. "That's me." Richard chuckled, like it was an inside joke. "We were starting to think you were a myth. Lauren barely mentions you, and you've missed the last few events." "I've been busy," Jake lied, a cold sweat prickling his forehead. How long had Lauren been painting him as the absent spouse? How many nights had she spent at these work events while he waited at home, thinking she was grinding for her career? Richard backpedaled, sensing the misstep. "No shade, man. Just saying, Ethan keeps everyone entertained. Guy's a machine." Before Lauren, there was that analyst from compliance. Before that, his assistant. Always a new face. Jake's grip on his empty glass tightened. "Good to know." Richard glanced at Lauren and Ethan, now laughing over a shared joke. "I'm sure it's nothing like that with her." They're just tight colleagues. Jake nodded stiffly, his eyes fixed on the scene across the rooftop. The crowd parted briefly, and Lauren glanced his way. Their eyes met for a split second before she turned back to Ethan, leaning closer to whisper something that made him smirk. That was it. Jake set his glass down with a sharp clink, stood, and headed for the elevator. No scene, no confrontation, just the quiet resolve to walk away from a room where he was invisible. As the elevator doors closed, cutting off the rooftop's glow, he caught one last glimpse of Lauren. She was looking his way now, her expression unreadable. For a moment, he thought she might call out, might chase after him. She didn't. The doors shut, and the elevator dropped 30 floors, each level stripping away the illusion of the life he thought they had. Outside, Miami's humid night air hit him like a slap. He stood on the sidewalk, the city's pulse thumping around him, taxis honking, neon lights flickering. He'd spent years building a life with Lauren, supporting her dreams, believing in their partnership. Now, every memory felt tainted. Had she been pulling away for months? Had he been too blind to see it? His phone buzzed. A text from Lauren at 11:42 p.m. Maybe you'll come back? For words, no apology, no urgency. Just an afterthought. Jake slipped the phone back into his pocket, unanswered. He needed answers, not questions. And he'd get them. On his terms. Jake Miller woke the morning after the rooftop gala with a headache that wasn't just from the martinis. The image of Lauren's hand on Ethan's arm, her laugh echoing for someone else, burned in his mind. He sat at the kitchen counter of their Miami condo, coffee untouched, replaying the night. Lauren had come home after 1 a.m., slipping into bed without a word. Now, she was in the shower, humming like nothing had happened. Jake's phone buzzed, a message from Sarah, the HR rep from the party. If you want answers, check her emails. Trust me. His stomach churned. Snooping felt wrong. A betrayal of the trust they'd built over 5 years of marriage. But Sarah's words from the night before, Ethan's reputation, and Lauren's absence from their life together, gnawed at him. He glanced at the closed bathroom door, the sound of running water steady. With a deep breath, he opened their shared laptop, a relic of their early days when passwords were freely exchanged. Lauren's email was already logged in. He scrolled through her inbox, heart pounding. Most messages were mundane, client updates, meeting schedules. Then he saw it, a thread buried under a vague subject line, T&B planning. No business jargon, just a chain of messages between Lauren and Ethan. His cursor hovered, guilt warring with suspicion. He clicked. The emails detailed a 5-day trip to Maui, not the Chicago client meeting Lauren had mentioned for next week. Hotel confirmations for a luxury suite at the Four Seasons, a rental car, a sunset dinner reservation for 2. No mention of clients or work, just phrases like can't wait to get away and just us. Jake's chest tightened. He opened an attachment, a flight itinerary for 2, Lauren Miller and Ethan Caldwell, departing Tuesday. The dates matched her supposed work trip. He closed the laptop, his hands shaking. The shower shut off, and Lauren emerged, towel-wrapped, oblivious to his discovery. Morning, she said, grabbing her phone from the counter. Big day at the office. Prep for Chicago. Jake forced a neutral tone. Chicago, huh? Sounds intense. When do you leave? Tuesday, she replied, typing on her phone without looking up. Back Thursday. Just a quick client thing. He nodded, the lie stinging. Hope it goes well. She smiled absently and headed to get ready. Jake stared at the laptop, the weight of her deception settling in. He could confront her now, demand answers, but what would that get him? Excuses? Deflection? He needed proof, not just words. An idea formed, reckless but clear. He opened his browser and booked a flight to Maui, departing the same day as hers. If he was going to end their marriage, he'd do it with the truth in hand. The next few days were a masterclass in acting. Jake played the supportive husband, asking about her Chicago pitch over dinner, helping her pack her suitcase. Each question was a test, each answer a lie. Nervous about the presentation, he asked Monday night, pouring her a glass of wine. A little, she said, eyes on her plate. It's a big client. Ethan thinks we'll seal the deal. I bet he does, Jake said, keeping his voice light. Her faint blush confirmed his suspicions. She was in deep, too caught up to notice his restraint. Tuesday morning, he drove her to Miami International Airport. Good luck, he said at the drop-off, leaning in for a kiss she barely returned. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too, she replied, her smile tight as she pulled her suitcase, the one he'd gifted her for their anniversary, toward security. Jake watched her disappear into the crowd, then sped home. His own flight to Maui left in 3 hours. On the plane, Jake sat beside a chatty couple headed for their honeymoon, their excitement a bitter contrast to his mission. He stared out the window, the ocean below a vast, unreadable expanse. Doubts crept in. Was he crazy to follow her? What if he was misreading everything? But Sarah's warning, the emails, Ethan's hand on her back, they weren't imagination. He needed to see it for himself. Landing in Maui, Jake checked into a modest hotel a mile from the Four Seasons. It was close enough to observe, far enough to stay unseen. From his balcony, he could see the beach stretching toward the horizon, couples strolling hand in hand. The beauty felt hollow. He wasn't here for a vacation. He was here to bury his marriage. That evening, he sat at a beachfront bar near the Four Seasons, baseball cap pulled low, nursing a beer. Lauren and Ethan hadn't appeared yet, but the anticipation kept him wired. His phone buzzed, a text from his best friend, Ryan. "You sure about this, man?" Confronting her could get messy. Jake didn't reply. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about clarity. At 9 p.m., he spotted them. Lauren and Ethan walked into the bar, her arm looped through his, both dressed casually, but moving like a couple. They chose a table by the water, laughing over cocktails. Jake's grip tightened on his bottle as Ethan's hand slid to Lauren's knee. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned closer, whispering something that made Ethan grin. Jake's phone was out before he could think, snapping a discreet photo. Evidence, he told himself, though each click felt like a wound. A woman slid onto the stool beside him, ordering a rum and Coke. She was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. "You've been watching him for a while," she said, not looking at him. "Ex or current?" Jake froze, caught off guard. "Who are you?" "Rebecca Jiao, private investigator," she said, sliding a business card across the bar. "I noticed things. You're not here for the sunset, are you?" He hesitated, then admitted, "Current. My wife. With her boss." Rebecca nodded, unsurprised. Classic setup. "Let me guess, she's on a business trip?" Jake showed her the photo on his phone. Supposed to be in Chicago. Found their real itinerary. She studied the image, then handed it back. "You've got proof. Question is, what's your next move? Confrontation? Revenge?" "I don't know," Jake said, rubbing his temple. "I just needed to see it." Rebecca sipped her drink. "Smart. Most people in your spot lose it, make a scene. But you're thinking. That's good. Get evidence, protect yourself, but don't let anger call the shots. I've seen too many spouses burn their lives down over this." Jake nodded, her words grounding him. "What would you do?" "Document everything," she said. "Photos, receipts, emails. Then get a lawyer. If you're divorcing, evidence gives you leverage. But whatever you do it for you, not to hurt her." He spent the rest of the night watching Lauren and Ethan, their ease with each other a knife in his gut. By midnight, he returned to his hotel, mind racing. Rebecca's advice echoed, "Protect yourself." He opened his laptop and emailed the photos to himself, time-stamped and backed up. Tomorrow, he'd follow them again, build his case. But as he lay in bed, the weight of it all pressed down. 5 years of love, trust, and plans, unraveled by a secret trip to paradise. He wasn't sure what hurt more, her betrayal or the fact that he hadn't seen it coming. Jake Miller woke in his Maui hotel room, the distant crash of waves a stark contrast to the storm in his chest. Day 2 of tailing his wife, Lauren, and her boss, Ethan Caldwell, had begun. He'd confirmed their affair last night at the beachfront bar, their casual intimacy captured in grainy phone photos. But one night's evidence wasn't enough. Jake needed undeniable proof, something to anchor the divorce he now knew was inevitable. He pulled on a baseball cap and sunglasses, grabbed his phone, and headed to the Four Seasons. By 10 a.m., he'd staked out a lounge chair by the hotel's pool, half hidden behind a large umbrella. The spot gave him a clear view of the entrance without drawing attention. He sipped a coffee, pretending to scroll through his phone, while his eyes scanned for Lauren and Ethan. His heart raced, not with anger but with a cold determination. Rebecca, the private investigator he'd met last night, had been clear, document everything, stay calm, protect yourself. They appeared just after 10:30, stepping out from the lobby. Lauren's laugh carried across the pool as Ethan's arm draped over her shoulders, possessive, and unapologetic. They chose a cabana at the far end, settling in with cocktails and sunscreen. Jake's camera app was open in seconds, zooming in to capture Ethan pulling Lauren onto his lap, her hands resting on his chest. Each photo felt like a nail in the coffin of their marriage, but he kept clicking, methodical and detached. A server brought them champagne, and they toasted, glasses clinking before Ethan leaned in for a kiss. Jake's stomach twisted, but he didn't look away. He switched to video, recording 30 seconds of their easy affection, proof no lawyer could dispute. As the morning stretched on, he followed them at a distance, blending into the crowd of tourists. They strolled the beach, hand in hand, stopping to splash in the shallows. Jake's phone stayed busy, his evidence pile growing. At noon, he returned to the same beachfront bar, needing a break. Rebecca was there, nursing a soda, her sharp eyes clocking him immediately. "Back for more?" she asked, sliding onto the stool beside him. "Needed more proof," Jake said, showing her a photo of Lauren and Ethan kissing by the water. "This enough?" Rebecca nodded. "More than enough. You got a solid case for divorce. New York's no fault, but this gives you leverage for a clean split." She paused, studying him. "You're handling this better than most. No dealing, no feasts." "What?" Jake shrugged, sipping a beer. "A scene won't undo what she did. I just want out, not revenge." "Good instinct," Rebecca said. "But you need a plan. You can't keep stalking them forever." "What's her endgame?" He hadn't thought that far. Confronting them felt pointless. Lauren would lie. Ethan would smirk. But walking away without closure gnawed at him. "I need her know I know," he said finally. "Not to hurt her, just to close the door." Rebecca leaned back, thoughtful. "Then make it clean. Leave a message, something undeniable, but don't engage. Get out before it gets messy. I've seen too many spouses spiral into fights they regret." Jake spent the afternoon tailing them to a seaside restaurant, where they fed each other bites of lobster, laughing like newlyweds. He recorded it all, his phone's memory filling with betrayal. By evening, he was back at the Four Seasons, watching them return to their suite. An idea solidified, sparked by Rebecca's advice. He needed to end this, not with a shouting match, but with a gesture that spoke louder than words. At a nearby shop, he bought a plain white envelope and a sheet of stationery. On it, he wrote, "You're responsible for her now. Good luck." He slipped his wedding ring inside, along with a printed screenshot of their Maui itinerary from Lauren's email. The weight of the ring in his hand felt final, like shedding a skin he'd outgrown. He sealed the envelope, wrote Ethan Caldwell on the front, and approached the Four Seasons concierge. "I have a delivery from Mr. Caldwell," Jake said, keeping his voice steady. "It's urgent. Make sure he gets it today." "Of course, sir," the concierge replied, taking the envelope. "I'll ensure it's delivered promptly." Jake nodded and walked away, his pulse steady for the first time in days. He'd done what he came to do. The evidence was secured, the message sent. There was no need to see their reaction. He returned to his hotel, packed his bag, and booked a red-eye flight back to Miami. As he checked out, his phone buzzed. A text from Ryan, his best friend. "You okay, man? Need me to pick you up tomorrow?" "Yeah," Jake replied. "I'll be home by morning. Need a place to crash." Ryan's response was instant. "My couch is yours. Whatever's going down, I got you." On the flight home, Jake sat beside a quiet businessman, the hum of the plane dulling his thoughts. He replayed the last 2 days. Lauren's laughter, Ethan's smug confidence, the ring in the envelope. He felt no satisfaction, only a strange calm. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by the clarity of truth. Lauren had chosen this path, not him. His job now was to protect himself, to rebuild on his own terms. Landing in Miami at dawn, Jake felt the city's humid air wrap around him like a familiar embrace. He took a taxi to Ryan's apartment, dropping his bag on the floor. Ryan, bleary-eyed in pajamas, handed him a coffee. "You look like hell. Want to talk?" Jake shook his head, collapsing onto the couch. "Not yet. Just need sleep." Ryan nodded, no pressure. "Whenever you're ready. But, man, you sure you don't want to confront her? After all this?" Jake stared at the ceiling, the envelope's weight still lingering in his mind. "She'll know soon enough." I left them a message. Ryan's eyes widened. "You what? Like a note?" "Something like that," Jake said, a faint smile breaking through. "Let's just say they'll have a lot to talk about." He closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling him under. The confrontation would come. Lauren would see the note, realize he knew everything. But for now, he'd done enough. The truth was out, and he was free to decide what came next. As sleep took him, one thought lingered. Whatever happened, he'd face it with his head high, no longer the invisible husband at the edge of the room. Jake Miller sat on Ryan's couch in Miami, the morning sun slicing through the blinds. He'd been back from Maui for less than 24 hours, his suitcase still unpacked by the door. The envelope he'd left for Ethan Caldwell at the Four Seasons, containing his wedding ring and a note declaring Lauren's betrayal, felt like a bomb waiting to detonate. His phone stayed silent, no word from Lauren, but he knew the explosion was coming. For now, he sipped coffee, steeling himself for what came next. Ryan, his best friend, hovered nearby, cracking eggs into a pan. "You sure she got the note?" he asked, glancing over. "No texts, no calls?" "Not yet," Jake said, checking his phone again. "But the concierge promised delivery. She'll know by now." Ryan shook his head, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs across the counter. "Man, that's cold. Leaving your ring? Ball's a move." Jake shrugged, poking at the eggs. Had to end it somehow. Confronting her in person, she'd just lie again. His phone buzzed, breaking the thought. A text from Lauren. "I'm back early. We need to talk. Our place, noon." No apology, just a demand, as if she still called the shots. Jake stared at the message, then typed a single word. "Okay." He wasn't ready to forgive, but he needed to hear her out, if only to close the chapter. At noon, Jake walked into their condo, the space feeling foreign be its system. The familiar hum of the city greeted Jake Miller as he stepped into the condo he once called home. The air was thick with tension, the silence of the space louder than Miami's usual bustle. Lauren sat at the dining table, her posture stiff, eyes red-rimmed but defiant. She'd returned from Maui earlier than planned, no doubt rattled by the envelope Jake had left at the Four Seasons, his wedding ring, a printed itinerary of her secret trip with Ethan Caldwell, and a note that cut like a blade. "You're responsible for her now. Good luck." "Jake," she said, half rising before sinking back in her chair. "Thank you for coming." He set his keys on the counter, keeping his distance. "You wanted to talk. So talk." Her voice trembled, but she held his gaze. "I got your note. I know what you think you saw in Hawaii, but it's not what you think. Not what I think." Jake's tone was sharp, cutting through her words. "I saw you with Ethan, Lauren. Holding hands, kissing, acting like a couple. I have photos, videos. Don't tell me I misread that." She flinched, hands twisting together. It was a mistake. A stupid, reckless mistake. It started 4 months ago. Ethan was helping with my promotion, mentoring me. Things got out of hand. I got caught up in the attention, the excitement. But it's over now. I ended it after your note. For months, Jake repeated, the timeline slicing deeper. For months of late nights, guarded texts, her pulling away while he played the oblivious husband. In Chicago, how many other business trips were with him? She looked down, voice small. 3. 3 trips. I am sorry, Jake. I didn't mean for it to go this far. He laughed, the sound bitter. 3 trips, a planned getaway to Maui, and you didn't mean it? That's not a slip, Lauren. That's a choice. Over and over again. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know I messed up. I got swept up in his promises, career boosts, connections. I felt invisible at home, like I was just your wife, not my own person. But I still love you, Jake. I want to fix this. Fix this. He leaned forward, voice low but steady. You told your colleagues I wouldn't show up to events, painted me as the absent husband. You lied to my face about Chicago, and now you want to fix it with I'm sorry. I ended it with Ethan, she said, desperation creeping in. I told him I want to save our marriage. He didn't fight me. He said it was fun while it lasted. I was a fool, Jake. I see that now. The admission stung, not because of her regret, but because it confirmed Ethan's pattern, using women like pawns, just as Sarah from HR had warned. Jake's jaw tightened. What do you want from me, Lauren? Forgiveness? A second chance? Because I don't know if I have that in me. Her eyes widened, hope flickering. A chance. Therapy, transparency, anything you need. I'll do the work. He stood, the weight of 5 years pressing down. I need time. I'm staying at Ryan's. My lawyer will reach out about next steps. Lawyer? Her voice cracked, panic rising. Jake, please don't rush into this. Rush. He turned, incredulous. You cheated for a third of a year. I'm protecting myself. That's not rushing. It's surviving. She nodded, deflated, as he walked to the door. I'll wait, she whispered. I'll prove you can trust me again. He didn't respond, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Back at Ryan's, Jake collapsed onto the couch, emotionally spent. Ryan handed him a beer, no questions asked. How'd it go? He ventured after a moment. As expected, Jake said, sipping the beer. She admitted it. 4 months with Ethan, 3 trips. Says it's over. Wants to try again. Ryan's eyes narrowed. And you? I don't know. Jake leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Part of me still loves her, but every time I picture her with him, it's like a wall goes up. I can't unsee it. Ryan nodded. You don't have to decide now. Take your time, man. The next day, Jake met with Daniel Rossi, a divorce attorney recommended by Rebecca, the PI from Maui. Daniel, a sharp-eyed veteran of messy splits, laid it out plainly. New York's no fault, but your evidence, photos, videos, emails, gives us leverage. You can push for a fair split of assets. Maybe more if she fights it. What's your goal? A clean break, Jake said. I don't want to destroy her, just move on. Daniel jotted notes. Smart. We'll draft a proposal, split the condo, savings, no alimony. If she's cooperative, this stays smooth. Jake nodded, the process feeling oddly grounding. He moved into a sublet apartment in Coconut Grove, a small place that suited his need for space. The Spartan setup, bed, couch, table, felt like a blank slate, a chance to redefine himself away from the shadow of Jake and Lauren. A week later, Sarah from HR called. Thought you want to know, she said, voice low. I filed a complaint about Ethan. His pattern. Target women, promise career boosts. It's not just you two. Other women came forward. The firm's investigating. He's on thin ice. Jake exhaled, a mix of relief and vindication. Thanks, Sarah. That means something. Figured you deserve to know, she said. You're not the bad guy here. The news shifted something in him. Ethan's charm, his power, had unraveled not just Jake's marriage but his own career. Pinnacle Wealth Management was tightening policies, and Ethan faced emotion, maybe worse. It wasn't revenge, but it was justice. Jake spent the next days untangling his life from Lawrence. He opened a new bank account, transferred half their joint savings, and listed their condo with a realtor. Each step was methodical, a quiet dismantling of their shared past. He didn't hate Lauren, but he couldn't trust her. Not now, maybe not ever. That night, lying in his new apartment, Jake scrolled through old photos on his phone. Trips to Key West, dinners with friends, moments when Lauren's smile had been his alone. The memories ached, but they didn't define him anymore. He'd faced the truth, walked away with proof, and set himself free. Whatever came next, divorce, a new start, he'd face it on his terms, no longer the man left waiting in the dark. Jake Miller stood on the edge of Coconut Grove Park, lacing up his sneakers for a charity 5K run. 6 months had passed since he'd left the envelope with his wedding ring at the Four Seasons in Maui, exposing his wife Lauren's affair with her boss, Ethan Caldwell. The divorce was finalized weeks ago, clean, civil, with their condo sold and assets split evenly. Jake had moved into a modest apartment, a fresh start that felt more like his own with each passing day. The scars of betrayal lingered, but he was learning to live with them. The race was for a local hospital, a cause Jake hadn't thought much about until recently. He'd signed up on a whim, needing something to fill the quiet weekends. As he stretched, a woman jogged up, pinning a race bib to her shirt. First time at one of these? She asked, her tone friendly but not pushy. Yeah, Jake said, managing a smile. Figured I'd try something new. I'm Jake. Emma, she replied, adjusting her ponytail. I'm a nurse at the hospital. These runs are my cardio and guilt trip rolled into one. Her laugh was warm, unforced, a sound that didn't carry the weight of Lauren's calculated charm. They chatted as the race began, keeping pace through the park's winding paths. Emma talked about her work, long shifts, patients who became like family, and Jake found himself opening up about his coding projects, steering clear of his recent past. By the finish line, they were breathless, but laughing, swapping stories over water bottles. She scribbled her number on his race bib, in case you need a running buddy, she said, then jogged off to join her team. Jake tucked the bib into his pocket, a flicker of hope stirring. He hadn't dated since the divorce, hadn't been ready. But Emma's ease, her lack of pretense, felt like a door cracking open. Days later, his phone buzzed with a text from Lauren, the first in weeks. Heard you ran into Ethan. Can we talk? Jake frowned, confused. He hadn't seen Ethan since Maui. Curious, he called Sarah from HR, who'd become an unexpected ally. Ethan's been telling people you confronted him, Sarah said, her voice laced with disgust. He's spinning it to save face, saying you threatened him. Total lie. The firm's investigation wrapped up. He's been demoted to a desk job. No client contact. Other women came forward, confirmed his pattern. He's done. Jake exhaled, a weight lifting. Ethan's fall wasn't his doing, but it felt like closure. Thanks for the heads up, Sarah. What about Lauren? She's still at the firm, keeping her head down. Word is she's in therapy, trying to figure herself out. Ethan dumped her right after Maui, moved on to his secretary. They're engaged now. Jake shook his head, unsurprised. Karma's efficient. Sarah laughed. You doing okay? Getting there, he said, meaning it. He ignored Lauren's text, focusing instead on a coffee date with Emma. They met at a small cafe near the hospital, talking for hours about everything but their pasts, movies, travel, her knack for burning toast. When she mentioned a bad breakup, Jake shared a sliver of his own story. My ex cheated. It's why I'm here, starting over. Emma nodded, no pity in her eyes. Mine left me for my best friend. Took a while to trust again. But you seem like you're worth the risk. Her words stayed with him. Over the next month, they saw each other often. Runs in the park, late-night tacos. A concert where they danced more than they listened. Emma was careful, like him, both guarding their wounds, but willing to try. Jake felt something he hadn't in years. Possibility. One evening, walking Emma home, his phone buzzed again. Another text from Lauren. Ethan's engaged to his secretary. Guess I wasn't special. I am sorry, Jake. He read it, then slipped the phone back into his pocket without replying. Lauren's regret was hers to carry. He'd spent months untangling his life from hers. New bank accounts, new apartment, new routines. Her apology, sincere or not, couldn't undo the choices she'd made. At his next meeting with his lawyer, Daniel Rossi, Jake reviewed the final divorce papers. You played this smart, Daniel said, sliding the documents across his desk. No drama, no revenge. Most clients want blood. You just want it out. Didn't see the point in burning it all down, Jake said. She did that herself. Daniel nodded. You've got a clean slate now. Use it. That night, Jake joined Emma at a hospital fundraiser, her hand brushing his as they mingled. She introduced him to her co-workers, her pride in him quiet but genuine. For the first time, he felt seen, not as Lauren's husband, not as the guy left behind, but as Jake whole on his own. Weeks later, he ran into Ethan by chance at a downtown bar. Ethan was with a young woman, his hand on her back, the same move he'd used on Lauren. He spotted Jake and froze, his confident smirk faltering. Jake, Ethan said, approaching cautiously. Didn't expect to see you. Better than expected, Jake replied, sipping his drink. You? Ethan glanced at his date, then back. Good. Things are good. Lauren and I were taking a break. Jake raised an eyebrow. Heard you're engaged. Congrats. Ethan shifted, uncomfortable. Look, about what happened. I'm sorry. It wasn't personal. Jake set his glass down, meeting Ethan's eyes. You did me a favor. If you hadn't, I'd still be with someone who didn't want me. So thanks. Before Ethan could respond, Emma arrived, her presence grounding Jake. Sorry I'm late, she said, kissing his cheek. Traffic was brutal. Worth the wait, Jake said, introducing her to Ethan without context. Ethan mumbled a greeting and retreated to his date, clearly rattled. Who was that? Emma asked as they sat down. Someone who doesn't matter anymore, Jake said, and meant it. Later, as they walked through Miami's glowing streets, Jake felt the past loosen its grip. Lauren's betrayal, Ethan's arrogance, the pain of those months. They'd led him here, to a woman who saw him, to a life he was building for himself. He squeezed Emma's hand, her warmth steadying him. In the quiet of his apartment that night, Jake reflected on the journey. The rooftop party, the Maui sting, the divorce, they weren't just losses. They were the breaking of a cage he hadn't known he was in. Ethan faced his consequences at work, Lauren her loneliness. Jake, though, had found something better. Peace, purpose, and a chance to love again. Not out of need, but choice.